I think we have this all wrong. The mutants are the villains in Avengers Doomsday, and they could up being the villains of phases 7 through 9. Welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and let's talk about the X-Men trailer for Avengers Doomsday and how it hints that the X-Men are not going to be the good guys of this story. Now, I'm going to caution you, we are going to be talking about a couple of potential plot leaks. Ian McKellen let something slip the other day, and a couple of smaller rumors have come out about the X-Men universe. I don't know if any of these are true, but I do think we are about to see the X-Men make some truly messed up decisions. So let me set the stage for you. As we saw in several chairs, many of the original X-Men are in this movie, including Professor Xavier, Magneto, Cyclops, Beast, Mystique, and Nightcrawler. Now that's really all we know for sure so far, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot more. However, we don't know if this is actually like the X-Men universe that started in the 2000 film.
What do you mean?
Well, dude, it's the multiverse saga, so there's an infinite amount of universes. By my count, there's at least 14 different timelines that involve the X-Men. That's including the branching timelines that Deadpool created, the different animated series, movies like Logan, and like Deadpool said,
these timelines are so confusing.
But it's kind of better if this is not the original 2000 universe, because then it frees up the creatives to put their own spin on the characters. Now then, leaker Alex Perez even seemed to confirm this, saying in Doomsday, the X-Men universe we get to see in the movie is a variant universe where the events similar to that of the original trilogy and Days of Future Past occurred, just to make it simpler for the audience to not do that much homework. But here's what we do know or can reasonably assume about this movie, and apologies if you've heard me explain this before. In the show Loki, he set up a system where the multiverse was allowed to continuously expand into infinity. But infinite universes also means infinite chances for those universes to threaten each other's existence. And when this boundary between realities becomes thin, an incursion happens. This is when two universes collide and the people have to make a choice. If you destroy the other universe, then your universe lives. If you do nothing, they both die. In the comics, a secret group of superheroes called the Illuminati actually built a device that would destroy another Earth. Heroes like Reed Richards, Tony Stark, and Black Panther had to make this choice, and we think that this choice is going to be at the very center of this movie. It's very likely that the X-Men universe and the 616 universe will collide, forcing a showdown between these two teams. Now, Dr. Doom will be the overarching villain, just like Thanos in Infinity War. But in Infinity War, the heroes were too divided to fight Thanos, just like the heroes will be fighting each other in this movie, which will lead to Dr. Doom's victory. Now, so far in our theory videos, we've kind of like brushed this idea aside. We all assumed that the heroes would fight it first, but then team up to fight Doom, and they would fail. But what if we're wrong? What if all through the movie, the X-Men are actively opposed to the Avengers, and they are the villains of the story? This could be the ultimate setup for the mutant saga.
Oh, is that my mom?
Well, actually, buddy, it is not. This is a present for me. Here we go. Isn't it magical? This is the birthday bubble box from Syndicate, the sponsor of this video. Guys, I love Syndicate. They're one of my all-time favorite sponsors for this channel because they make incredibly unique, perfect gifts, especially for me and Doug. We work in the store, we're far away from our families, we're in a void of nothingness. So when I buy a gift for my loved ones, I want it to be special. Now this one has that really cool bubble shooter that actually can be reused and refilled with more fluid, like this. And it also comes with all of these delicious little cake donuts.
Oh, I do like a good bubble.
Yes, you do. Oh, and we also have the Dubai cake explosion. Whoa, okay, all right. So this one, as you can see, comes with these butterflies and little caramels, and also this Dubai chocolate pistachio cream cake. But my favorite part of this, Doug, you'll like this. They have a customizable photo option. Here's a photo of Doug as a teddy bear, and this is Doug in his little suit.
Oh, very handsome boy.
Now, Syndicate ships to all 50 states, and it is a thoughtful, hassle-free gift for any occasion. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, retirements, and more. So if you use our link below and the code CRUSH10, you will get 10% off your order today. So there's another plot rumor from My Time to Shine Hello, who has been fairly reliable in the past. They said, in Avengers Doomsday, the X-Men have been through so many incursions, so when the Avengers and the Fantastic Four come to their universe to try and help them, they assume they came there to destroy them, and that's why they fight. Let that soak in. The X-Men have been through many incursions. The only way the X-Men could go through an incursion and live is if they were destroying other universes first. And this is where Magneto comes in. So Ian McKellen accidentally corroborated some of these rumors. In an interview with Josh Hamilton, he casually slipped up and said,
"Though I did destroy New Jersey the other day."
And actually, if he hadn't said that he messed up, nobody would have even cared. But then he caught himself making me think that yes, he does destroy New Jersey. And right after this, leaker Alex Perez tweeted this picture from the comic book Ultimatum. Now in this book, Magneto goes insane after his kids are killed. So he combines his powers with Thor's hammer to change Earth's magnetic poles, resulting in planet-wide destruction and the deaths of a lot of main characters. Now, this does not mean that like all the other mutants are going to die in this movie and Magneto goes crazy, but it does mean that we will see him use his power on a massive scale, similar to what he did in X-Men Apocalypse when he changed Earth's magnetic poles to wipe out humanity.
Yeah, you know, I forgot he did that.
I did too. Most people forgot. I mean, we remember Ian McKellen moving the Golden Gate Bridge in Last Stand, and in the comics, he is an Omega-level mutant. He used his powers to create a volcano and destroy a Russian city. But in the trailer for this movie, Magneto's not a villain. He and Xavier look like they're friends. They're smiling at each other. They're playing chess and chilling out in the mansion. Hell, Magneto's wearing a cozy sweater. And he seems like he's the one lecturing Charles. He says,
Are you prepared to die? Who will you be when you close your eyes?
Now, we took this to mean that this was Magneto advising Charles to not destroy another universe to save their own. What if this is Magneto giving somebody else advice and telling them, look, everybody over there is going to die no matter what. Wouldn't you rather die knowing that you saved the people you loved? And Alex Perez offered one other tease, and this is the last potentially spoiler thing that we'll talk about. He said, this universe exists as a utopia for humans and mutants, but you have to wonder what exactly happened prior to that allowed this utopia to exist. What sacrifices had to be made for the greater good? And that question is the general motif of Doomsday. So this makes sense. I mean, we heard that there was a crisis in space.
And now there's this huge space crisis and no one's telling us about it.
And that crisis could have been caused by incursions. And then Sam and the others will have to make this decision. Do we destroy other universes to save our own? But it sounds to me like the X-Men have already been making that decision over and over and over. From the trailer, it looks like Xavier and Magneto have pushed aside their differences and they're working together. And by the way, real quick, fun shout out to a member of our Discord, LaCouch, who speculated that Charles is mind controlling Magneto because he's not wearing his helmet. I actually don't think that's the case, but I think it's something worse. I think that Charles and Eric agree that they have to destroy other universes. So the X-Men have this perfect utopia where mutants and humans coexist in their universe. I don't actually think that in the universe, everybody suddenly became enlightened and loved each other. If that was the case, we wouldn't see Cyclops fighting a Sentinel. No, I think the answer here is a lot more pragmatic. This universe already faced its world-ending event, but the mutants saved the world. And then it happened again and again, and humanity learned that they need mutants to be their protectors. And this could have even evolved into a system where mutant kind started to lead the government, creating Magneto's House of M type reality where his kind ruled the planet. Now, as for how they stopped the incursions, I do have one fun idea. There is one part of Ultimatum that we could see in this movie. Magneto could use Thor's hammer Stormbreaker to augment his powers. Now, we did see Thor with Stormbreaker in the Doomsday trailer, and by the way, that's important. As far as we know, Mjolnir still has Odin's enchantment, so only a worthy person can lift the hammer of Thor. But Stormbreaker does not have such an enchantment. Anybody can use it, which is why Thanos was able to briefly hold it in Endgame's final battle. And Stormbreaker is way more powerful than Mjolnir. It can create a Bifrost, a dimensional gateway, and this is potentially a device that Magneto could use, along with his own powers, to open gateways to other universes to destroy them. So in his reality, he could have gotten a hold of Stormbreaker and then used it to destroy other universes.
Yeah, but I don't get why would the X-Men suddenly become the bad guys?
Well, that's a great question, and it actually perfectly sets up the mutant saga. So I think that the most important X-Men storyline of all time is Days of Future Past. Not because it's the best story ever, but because it sets the X-Men apart from all the rest of the other Marvel heroes. This story gave mutant kind an expiration date. See, all the other comic heroes are kind of perpetual. Iron Man and Spider-Man are trapped in cycles of guilt. Captain America and Punisher will never stop their wars. I mean, you get the idea. But the X-Men and all of mutant kind are actively fighting against their own extermination. They have seen many likely futures where they go extinct. Days of Future Past, Age of Apocalypse, the various timelines where Apocalypse wins. Or, you know, they're just wiped out by a plague. Mutants are kind of like the Jedi Order. They basically exist to be dramatically destroyed. There's even a story in the comics where Magneto and Xavier unite to stop the inevitable, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And real quick, I want to remind you guys, we have some awesome X-Men parody merch for sale at our merch store. We have a parody of Nighthawks featuring X-Men characters, the Woo, I'm about to make a name for myself, and Remember It, both tributes to Gambit, and of course our Doomsday favorites like Tony Stark granting life to Ultron. You can find links for these and many more down below. Thanks for supporting us. Now, a few months ago, our very own Colton Ogburn wrote a video about how Magneto could become the villain of this movie, and he pointed out that there's a pattern in X-Men films. Magneto fights alongside Xavier and his team, but then turns on them so he can exterminate humankind. He tried this in X2, and then in Last Stand they agreed that the mutant cure was wrong, but then Magneto weaponized the Phoenix to wipe out humanity. And in First Class and Days of Future Past, he worked alongside Xavier, but then turned on him. And in Apocalypse, he actually sided with the villain to destroy the world before he had a face turn. And this also happens in X-Men 97. Magneto becomes headmaster of the school, but then turns on Xavier again. So I think 100% Magneto is a guy who would destroy another universe for his greater good. He was born out of the Holocaust. He's already seen his people hunted and exterminated, so there is no way he would ever let this happen to his entire planet. But here's the thing.
That's it. The thing.
Magneto is not the only person here with villainous tendencies. Charles Xavier, also kind of a bastard.
But he's a good guy.
Uh-huh. Well, remember what Gotham's greatest district attorney said.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Let's start with the comics. And by the way, shout out to Billy Bob Thistleton on Reddit for compiling this list. In the comics, Xavier was a therapist for Holocaust survivors. He would use his telepathy to enter their minds and help them deal with trauma. He ends up having sex with one of his patients, Gabrielle Haller, and even conceals that he is a telepath from her. That is wrong on many ethical levels. It was also revealed that when the original X-Men were trapped on the living island of Krakoa, that Cyclops led a rescue team that was slaughtered. So Professor Xavier wiped that memory from his mind so he could send Scott out to fight again. He basically Winter Soldiered him. He mind-wiped Magneto's brain in the comics and in the animated series. And in the movies, he frequently uses his mind control ability on others and reads their minds without their permission. There's also this creepy way he hit on this girl in First Class.
Pint of bitter for me and a brandy for the lady, please.
How did you know that?
Lucky guess.
And then in X2, which is still the best X-Men movie, the film ends with Xavier leading the X-Men to infiltrate the Oval Office. They shut off the power, they freeze everybody in the room, and they cause storm clouds to form outside, all to intimidate the president so he will make an address that is favorable to mutant kind. Now, the president says,
"Then you also know I don't respond well to threats."
And Xavier's reply is,
Mr. President, this is not a threat. This is an opportunity.
and that's total crap. This is the equivalent of saying, hey, nice Oval Office you got there. It'd be a shame if somebody burned it down. The X-Men strong-armed the government into cooperation. But they do this for a greater good. The alternative is that humanity makes mutants into second-class citizens. The X-Men did this to prevent war, to save lives. So what would stop them from destroying another universe in order to prevent a multiversal war and to save potentially trillions of people in their own reality? The X-Men offer the president peace, but with a gun to his head. And remember what Steve Rogers said about that.
This isn't freedom. This is fear.
But I'm not even done. In Days of Future Past, we meet a version of Xavier whose faith in his dream is gone and he's given up.
I don't want your future!
He also repressed Jean's childhood memories and lied to her about her dad being dead. And then, in Multiverse of Madness, Xavier was part of the Illuminati.
Stephen renounced the Darkhold's evil and helped us find the Book of Vishanti, a weapon we did use together to defeat Thanos. But one final threat remained.
They revealed that they actually killed Doctor Strange, but then they lied to the world about it. And Xavier's sins are legion in the comics, no pun intended. When he was part of the comics Illuminati, they conspired to exile the Hulk into space without a trial. They invaded the Skrull homeworld to warn them not to invade, which of course prompted an invasion. And in the recent Fall of X storyline, he colluded with an anti-human organization and became their patsy. But frankly, I haven't read all of that one yet. I'm still in the middle of that arc, so I didn't research any further than that. Now, after Xavier's comic book death, the Illuminati went on to do even more horrible, questionable things, like building a device to destroy other worlds to save their own. And even though Charles wasn't technically a member during this time, I 100% think he would have voted to destroy other universes to save his precious X-Men. So even though Xavier has this beautiful dream of coexistence, he's not afraid to compromise it. In fact, in the comics, there have been a few times when the X-Men have just given up and went off to start their own civilization. In the 2000s, mutants were hit with with a few devastating events. There was the massacre of Genosha, like we saw adapted in X-Men 97, and then Wanda Maximoff declared no more mutants and depowered 90% of the mutant race. Afterwards, mutant kind retreated to their own nation, Utopia, where they could rebuild their civilization. Cyclops was even the leader of this mutant nation. That's right, the most steadfast member of the X-Men, the teacher's pet, gave up on the dream so his people could live in peace. But the best recent example of this is the recent Krakoa arc. In this story, it's revealed that Moira McTaggart is actually a mutant who has been resurrected into her own body several times, and then she's always reborn with all of her past memories. So she has lived several lifetimes, and in every scenario, mutants are wiped out by humans and machines. So she charts the only path forward. All of the mutants, Xavier, Magneto, Apocalypse, Mr. Sinister, everybody, have to band together to form a sovereign nation. And it works, for a time. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is to show you there's precedent for the X-Men to be divided against everybody else. Hell, even in the 1984 version of Secret Wars, when the heroes and villains were brought to an alien planet to fight each other, the X-Men and Magneto split off from everybody else and kind of did their own thing. So this brings us to Avengers Doomsday. I 100% think that the mutants are going to be very hard-hearted when it comes to incursions. They will not think twice about fighting the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, or anyone else who threatens their way of life. They have seen a future where they all die, either by robots or by corn syrup. They will not risk extinction again. I think we're going to see a full-on Avengers versus X-Men battle in this film, but I don't think that Xavier will end the movie as a villain. I do think he will have a change of heart because, well, this is likely Patrick Stewart's very last time in this role. It may be his last role ever. We've already seen Xavier die on screen 3 times, and each time it was a little bit more lame than the last. So I think they have to give this character a proper, honorable goodbye. Please. Now, let's look ahead, past Doomsday and Secret Wars, and talk about what this means for the next phase of movies. Now, even though it's not confirmed, we do think that phases 7 through 9 will be the mutant saga. Marvel is already casting for their rebooted X-Men team, and there are rumors that Sadie Sink is playing Jean Grey in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And there are also rumors that Marvel is developing more mutant-centric stories and not just focusing on the X-Men. Now, in the show Wonder Man, we saw how the Department of Damage Control is clamping down on anybody with superpowers. And I think this is going to be escalated by the emergence of mutant kind across the planet. Anti-mutant paranoia is going to be rampant post-Secret Wars. People understand superheroes. They know that they need them, that they stop Thanos. But hey, your own kid could be a mutant. And some of the mutants look like monsters or they're deformed. A few heroes people can deal with. But the prospect of like hundreds of thousands of superpowered teenagers, that would scare the out of people. Mutants would also become a scapegoat for anybody with superpowers. And then we have our superheroes who just survived the collapse of the multiverse. Now, even though it's not confirmed, it is likely that Secret Wars will end up on Battle World and everybody fighting each other, but then it will end with the rebirth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Kevin Feige even called this a soft reset, meaning that they can keep or throw out whatever storylines don't fit in the new universe. So, will heroes like the Avengers remember how they had to fight against the mutants and the X-Men? If so, this means that they would never fully trust mutant kind. Just like how the storyline Days of Future Past gave mutants an expiration date, Doomsday could show the superheroes what happens when mutants are allowed to run around unchecked. They are dangerous. So I would love for the mutant saga to slowly ratchet up their paranoia and lead into an Avengers vs. X-Men movie. A film where mutant kind has to make this decision. Will we separate ourselves from humanity, or will we try to be a part of it? And that paranoia, that conflict can begin this year in Avengers Doomsday. But what do you guys think? Will the X-Men be the villains of this movie? Should they be the villains of the movie? Or what would you like to see them do in phases 7 through 9? Do you think they're onto something, or is this all too complicated? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on our free-to-join Discord server, or you can find me and subscribe on Substack. That'd be a huge help. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.